Welcome to the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, book club. If you want to hear a review and summary of the book, I'll link that video down below. In this video, I'm going to introduce 5 discussion questions about this book. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on them, and I want you to leave your answers in the comments below, or in a video response. Accio questions. Question 1. Professor Quirrell tells Harry that there is no good and evil, there is only power, and those too weak to seek it. Do you agree with this? Alright, so I would have to say that I don't really agree with this statement. When he says there is no good and evil, I sort of do agree with him because I don't think it's so black and white. There are shades of gray. It's not just good and evil. But when he says there's only power and those too weak to seek it, I start to disagree with him because I feel like a lot of people have options to become powerful, but they turn it down not because they're weak, but because they know that it wouldn't be the best situation for everyone. So I sort of agree with the first part of his statement because I do think that, everyone has little bits of good and evil inside of them, but I do think that there is a difference between, power and those too weak to seek it. I think there is sort of a middle ground in there. Question 2. Did any of the secondary characters stand out for you? Oh my goodness, yes, of course they did. I think that's one of the great things about J.K. Rowling, is she really manages to create a really diverse selection of characters. And I think some of the characters that really stood out for me would have to be Professor McGonagall. I think she is just brilliantly done. She's so, you can sort of, the type of person that would be her. So I feel like for that, she really stood out to me. Other people, Mrs. Weasley, she's such a loving mother, but she could also be really fierce. So she was really complex. Who else? Draco Malfoy, you see how he's sort of evil, but he's really just sort of, he does come across really evil in this book, but it's just at the same time, he's not so much evil, but as he is bad, but he's just so funny, and he adds a lot of great elements to this book. There's so many characters. Literally all of the characters are really complex and really diverse. So I couldn't just pick, a few secondary characters. Really, all of them are great. Question 3. Who is the most evil person in this book? Okay, so I think that the really obvious answer to this question would have to be Lord Voldemort, because he's a murderer and he does horrible, horrible, horrible stuff. But also I feel like Quirrell is really evil, because when you compare Quirrell's evil and Voldemort's evil, Lord Voldemort is trying to sort of rule the entire wizarding community and, reform how Muggles are treated. Reform in a bad way, but Lord Voldemort just really wants power, and he'll get the power if his plans work. But with Quirrell, he wouldn't necessarily get that much power from what he's doing. So I feel like that's almost more evil than what Lord Voldemort does, because they both do horrible things, but Lord Voldemort does it for power versus where Quirrell does it to just be, Lord Voldemort's minion? Question 4. Which of the Hogwarts houses do you think the Sorting Hat would place you in? Why? Alright, so for this question, I feel like I would want the Sorting Hat to put me in Gryffindor because, in this book, you have Harry, Ron, Hermione, the twins, everyone that you like is really in Gryffindor, so obviously, it sort of holds a special place in my heart and I'd want to be in Gryffindor. But I feel like if I was actually going to Hogwarts, the Sorting Hat would put me in Ravenclaw because I really like books. Obviously, I have a YouTube channel doing book reviews, and I really like anything intellectual. So I think I'm almost a mix of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, so we'd almost just have to wait and see what the Sorting Hat would say. And finally, question 5. How would Harry be different if Dumbledore decided that he should be raised in the magical world instead of with the Dursleys? Did Dumbledore make the right decision? Alright, well, this question's kind of hard, but I think Dumbledore did make the right decision about Harry being raised by Muggles, except I do not think he made the right decision about him being raised with the Dursleys. The Dursleys are just awful, borderline, just abusive to Harry, and I almost feel like Harry would have been better off if he was put up for adoption, a nice loving home or something. I feel like that would have really been good for him. But then again, at the same time, this book wouldn't be what it is if he hadn't grown up with the Dursleys, because obviously he wouldn't have been, so shocked to find love with, Ron and Hermione and Dumbledore and everyone. But I think Dumbledore did make the right decision about him being raised by Muggles, because if he had grown up in the wizarding world, like Dumbledore said, he probably would have gotten sort of full of himself and maybe grown up, and everyone would have known who he is, and he would have known who he was, and that's just a lot for a little kid to take, and I think 11 was a good age. And in this book, we really sort of have, like, a beautiful, like, Harry sort of discovering who he really is. So without that, there wouldn't have really been this book. So I think, obviously, J.K. Rowling made the final decision, and I think it worked best for the story.